Once you start outlining what you're doing on a daily basis, you're going to be amazed on how much time you spend on non-productive activities or activities that cost so little for somebody else to do.
So in today's episode, ladies, we have Anna Lee. She is a serial entrepreneur and got her start outsourcing and hiring VAs when she was in another country and was flipping and wholesaling here in America. What she did then is built a company that was very successful in helping other people hire VAs. And that's what we break down on today's episode.
And what I like about this episode is that we're going step by step on how yes, high achiever women listening to this episode can unlearn what's holding you back from pulling the trigger and outsourcing it. So we talk about the mindset. We also talk about the vetting process, the management process, and how can you set yourself up for success.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Invest Her Show. Our mission is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. We're so excited to have Anna Lee on our show here today. We're going to be getting into probably one of my favorite subjects, outsourcing, delegating. And I have so much to learn. So I'm literally have my pen in my hand and my notepad because I'm just pumped because we all need to learn how to do this in a better way. So Anna, thanks so much for being on our show. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. So we have a lot of questions, right? Andressa, we're ready. So let's dive in. First one is this. What lesson has taken you the longest to learn?
It's probably right on the tip of the month, right? We're talking about outsourcing today. And I think this is probably the lesson, try to outsource as fast as possible. Anything and everything in life, whatever you do. I mean, I grew up in a household of strong women. Everyone was doing everything, and I think that kind of came as a point of pride, but you really don't want to kind of kill yourself towards the end of that. So for me, probably that's the unlearning that I'm doing, and I'm still doing that. And probably that's the biggest lesson for a lot of women that, if I can leave this podcast with anything, is just, do less.
I totally agree with you. And I think that the women that are listening to our podcast that come to our conference, they are very high achievers. They're masters in figuring things out on their own and be creative, just the doers and go for it. And that's what brought them here, right? That's what made them super successful. But the conversations that we are having with them right now, that can be the Achilles as well. And that can hold them back from taking the business to the next level. And most important, from them to buying time and have the freedom for them to do whatever they want. Here's the thing, Anna. They know that. They know that. It's not like, oh, I never heard about virtual assistant, right? And if that's you listening to me right now, say me, because I know that it's not like, okay, I know that. The challenge is that how do they go from here to really I'm going to do it? There's this blockage. And I don't know about your experience with working so many entrepreneurs, how they can overcome that blockage of really I know what I need and I am doing it. What is holding women back, in your opinion?
I think probably a lot has to do with cultural norm. And I think we do that to other women too, right? We set those high standards and we say, I'm doing all of that, right? And then so the other woman is probably looking at the same example and like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. And they're kind of pouring more on their shoulders. I think it starts with conversations like this, right? First, you do give a permission to everyone else. It's not like anyone is looking for permission, but sometimes we need to hear it from a third party.
Yeah.
And we need to say and empower other women that we see. And it's almost like an obligation as you have a friend, as you have, a relative and another fellow investor, you're obligated to tell them, I think you're putting yourself to the ground, right? You're obligated to tell them that you have to do less. And I think I always kind of go back to this comparison of on the airplane, you're never going to feel bad about putting a mask first to yourself and then to your child.
Yeah.
Right. In a normal situation, you probably would run to save your child. But on the airplane, they explain to you, you have to take care of yourself first, because if you faint, you'll never help your child. So I think it's the same thing, right? If you're going to be drained out from energy, you're never going to kind of succeed in your business, right? If you're drained from energy, you're not showing up amazing as an amazing mom, wife, or whatever you are, right, to your family. So, and then I think it just kind of comes back to start with yourself. You have to fulfill yourself first, get all that energy back, get all that, I don't know. I haven't been exercising in a while and recently came back, and I'm in a class of a lot of elderly women because, I don't work anymore, my W-2 job, so I can go morning classes, and I'm exercising with elderly women, and I'm way, way less stronger than them. And I'm just looking at them like, what's happening?
I was thinking about doing that, so I feel good about myself. But as you were saying, I'm changing my mind because they might have so much more energy than I am. I'm not doing that anymore. That was okay. I aboard that plan.
And the biggest difference is they retired a little bit, maybe like 10 years ago versus me. And it's kind of odd. You don't have to wait until you're retired to take care of yourself. So that's probably the biggest lesson for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think we need to stop encouraging women to do it all. We really do. Like in our circles, there was a woman in my community that was going through a lot and not asking for help. She's literally killing herself, got into a car accident, like really bad. And the text chain of my friends were like sending Wonder Woman images. And I'm like, she needs help. And she doesn't even see that she needs help. Like I want to have that conversation with her. I don't want to tell her she's Wonder Woman. I mean, God bless her. She's doing it all, but it's literally killing her and causing accidents, right? So anyway, we need to be mindful of that in our circles. I love that. So you got your experience. I know you have experience investing overseas and flipping overseas. Was that where your passion for outsourcing came from?
Yes. It probably not even a passion. It started with a need.
Yeah, that passion probably is a very big term, but
it kind of became, it was impossible. My husband and I and our kids, we moved to Switzerland about 5 or 6 years ago. I was still employed with my corporate job. It was an amazing opportunity, nothing wrong with that. But I was dabbing into sort of kind of business as my husband was continuously invested in real estate. And from him to run the business, he had to have boots on the ground. But, every business needs a back office support, right? And I was just dabbing into wholesaling. So, physically, I was incapable of doing anything in my business, right? Not only there was a time difference, but also there was a full-time job, right? Yeah. I have 3 kids on top of that. So came out of necessity. I just had to research virtual assistants for basically a lead generation. And that's how I kind of started, but then I just got addicted, right? So it's almost like a blessing in disguise, right? I didn't realize that, that's something that will propel me so drastically. I didn't know even back then that, that one little change in my life will affect so many aspects of my life in general.
So for those women right now that they're about to hire their first virtual assistant. And we were calling them VAs here, women. If you hear us saying VAs, we're referring to virtual assistant. So they're looking to do that right now. They're not so confident about the process of hiring it. And I don't think that based on everything that we have been through in our business, building a team in the US and overseas, eating dirt back and forth a couple of times. I don't think I can emphasize enough the importance of the vetting process and fully understanding if you are a good match with that person. So what are your recommendations when somebody's looking to hire their first VA? What are the red flags that they should be aware of and what they should be focusing on?
Sure. Definitely use the rule of hire slow, fire fast, right? Never kind of feel intimidated. That's another part of, us being women in general, we always kind of feel intimidated everywhere, right? And just in general. So never be intimidated to ask for more. And then it kind of applies both during the interview process when you have that, referral gathering and anything else that during the interview process, but also as you hire them, ask for more in terms of the KPIs. So when you look for someone, you want to set up clear expectations when you even create your job description, right? As you post it, you want to have an amazing vetting process, because, if you're going to look for people anywhere, right, online, you're going to probably have 50 to 100 candidates. If you're already a busy woman, right, you probably don't have time. And that sort of like derails the whole process. Sometimes you have your 100 applicants sitting in your inbox. You're like, oh my God, I just don't want to do that, right? So find a way to get down to the easier process of kind of vetting through the list of applicants right away. Like I personally use Google Forms, and then we kind of use Excel and quickly kind of narrow it down to the list of potential candidates to be interviewed. Then you have to interview quite a lot of people, right? It's a game of statistics, similar to any lead gen process. You generate 100 leads, you maybe have 10 of them warm and you convert one. It's very similar to that. So interview a lot of people, and then, find your one candidate that would be kind of absolutely rock star. But I would probably bank on like top 3 or 5 in the very beginning, just to kind of narrow down among that smaller group of people.
I love what you're saying about the analogy, comparing the type of investments that we do in real estate and just transferring that mentality to investing on teams. Why do you think a lot of the investors don't invest time into building a team?
I think everything comes from sort of like personal kind of blockages and programs. I always kind of get back down to that. Not being able to trust people comes from personal kind of fears, right? That maybe some like people were kind of hurt at once and may not even be related to business at all. So trust issues in general, I'd say like start with you. Anything that's kind of like blocking you, start with yourself, right? So why am I not trusting people, right? Or why am I not believing that I'm capable of growth, right? There's a fear of, if I'm growing, maybe there's another kind of societal stigma then, growing is bad because XYZ. Or if I make a lot of money, it's bad because XYZ, right? So there's a lot of kind of personal fears that I see in a lot of entrepreneurs and growth in general. But once they kind of overcome that fear, then there becomes this, well, I can do it better faster. You can do it better faster only to your own capacity. And then you're still going to maximize that capacity, right? So you cannot grow beyond yourself. So then I'd say it's okay if you hire people, they do it slower. They do it maybe not to the same quality as you are. Eventually they'll get to that level. And they may never do it as perfect as you are, because you set yourself a high standard that even you cannot achieve, right? So just let that part go, and then you'll see how much you're going to grow. So that's probably, one of the biggest learnings for me too. I had to let go of so many things. So
what are the first steps, right? Because it can feel a little overwhelming when you start to say, okay, I'm going to go hire someone. There's companies that do it for you. There's, different strategies. You go do it yourself. But like, what's that first step? Obviously, like you're saying, clear expectations, the vetting process. Is there anything else, though, that women really need to get clear on before they even embark on that clarity of the role and actually the process? Is there any other, and I understand what you're saying about the blocks, but what's that first step? Like what's that literally that first step that I can do, even to choose what I need them to do?
Absolutely. You kind of pointed it out with your question. I talk with so many people who know they need to outsource. They just really don't even know what to start with. They're just overwhelmed, and they haven't formalized what they overwhelmed with. And I think you just have to sit down and kind of go through this process, list out everything that you do. I know it may sound annoying and another waste of time. Yet again, I have to do something else. But I guarantee you, absolutely, once you kind of start outlining what you're doing on a daily basis, you're going to be amazed on how much time you spend on non-productive activities or activities that cost so little for somebody else to do. So one of the tips that I normally kind of advise a lot of my customers is that not only create a list of what you do, but also then put the list into 2 different buckets. One bucket is your $10 and below activities, and the other bucket is $200 and above. I purposely eliminate anything in between. There's a difference between going from 10 to 200, because a lot of people ask you, well, what if it's a $50 activity? No, I purposely do that because then you almost like forcing yourself to put, yeah, it's kind of more like under $10. Or no, it's so productive, it is above $200. And, maybe it's something client facing where you actually close that deal or make that sale, whatever that is. Or maybe it has that human connection. Maybe that $200 value brings you at a human connection level, right? So once you get that to that list, it's going to be very apparent what you need to outsource first.
I couldn't love this more. And you guys are going to be seeing and hearing me saying, listen, this is a $10. This is $10 activity. Because I think that when we start having those conversations with the women in our community, we create this language where we understand. And if they're listening and if they're applying everything that you're saying, there's no way that I'm not going to either send a reminder or, for any activity. And I was like, wow, hold on a second. This is a $10 activity. I shouldn't be doing that. One thing that we hear a lot, well, before I hired them or the person, I just need to do some cleanup. It's like cleaning your house before the cleaning lady or the cleaning guy comes in.
Everyone does that.
And I was like, wait, maybe that's their purpose to do it. And normal cultures or anything else. The second thing that we hear a lot is, I don't know if I can afford them. And I think there's so many misconceptions. And I would like you to talk a little bit more about what have you seen?
Sure, absolutely. In terms of cleanup, it's probably the most common thing that I see people not sort of making that first step, and it never sort of happens because they're not cleaning up for a reason even now, right? So there's nobody else who's going to kind of do it. So they're always going to be stuck in that phase one. The second part, in terms of not being able to afford, there's just so many ways of affording, let's say, a support, right? And it comes from different sort of places, right? I see a lot of women still cleaning their houses, right? And I'm such a clean freak, OCD. I needed to have like the perfect level of a cleaner. Doesn't mean you can't really find somebody there. And I can't believe that I was, priding myself, I'm at a certain level at my corporate job, right? Like at a senior level position, and yet I'm still vacuuming and I'm priding myself. I can do it all, right? So this is absolutely a nonsense, right? And, look around your house. Outsource first things that take a lot around your house because they're just draining. I mean, do something that you actually like. I don't know. Some people like baking. I personally like, showering the snow. Like this is my most favorite activity because you outside, fresh air, but something that's draining you, just outsource that first. The second part about not being able to afford and how you can afford it, there's just so many ways. First of all, an average virtual assistant in Philippines is about $5 an hour. That's if you hire yourself. If you hire through an agency, maybe double that cost, but nonetheless. Second part, do you have to hire full-time? Can you hire part-time? So that's another cost saving. Third, I personally, in some of my business-related activities, actually share a VA with somebody else, right? So think about all other ways on how you can cut down the cost even further, right? And then also kind of go even back and ask yourself a question. What is your end goal? Are you in a sort of like trying out phase all the time? Or are you going to be always that very small business doing maybe one rental a year? Or your goal is to grow 10x? Right. So, and I think naturally, probably everyone would be like, no, I want to grow 10x. Like, I don't want to be stagnant. And in order for you to grow, you absolutely have to have a team around you to help you grow. So what's your sort of like ROI on investing into a team member, right? Start little by little. And, you do the analysis all the time. What's your ROI on investing in Burr or, next flip or whatever? It's the same thing, right? invest into a team, and then think about what are you going to do once you free up your time? Because that's the third part that I'm not necessarily hearing, but I'm seeing with a lot of people. They'll outsource their tasks to a VA, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to go watch Netflix, right? So probably that has zero ROI. But if you think that you're going to be generating some productive conversation, education, growing your network, whatever it is, that has an ROI, even if it's not tangible in the very beginning, probably will produce a result within the next 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, that's so true. So with regards to then managing VAs, I think that also is like the rubber meets the road. You hire someone, you found them, and it's like, depending on your own personality, you may or may not give enough detail. You might give them some KPIs. What are some tips or strategies you can give the women listening to set them and the VA up for success? Because it's really, it's like finding the property, right? That's the easier part. It's really managing the project to really yield the most ROI. It's the same with a person, but there's no recipe to do that, and it varies. So is there a recipe? And what would you say are the systems, the processes, kind of the standards that you should uphold so that you can manage somebody, especially onboard them and manage them appropriately?
I'd say I'd probably split people into two kind of buckets, right? You probably either had an experience of managing people in your corporate life, if you kind of come from there, or you've never managed people, whether you never managed people in corporate, you've never managed people, you've never worked for anyone or anyone ever worked for you, right? So I would say if you ever managed people before rather successfully, kind of double down on what you already were doing before. It's the same, right? Human sort of persona applies, and kind of the personalities applies everywhere. So however you were managing before, if you were successful, continue to manage the same way. If you've never managed people, I would correlate that to being a parent. You've never been a parent either, right? But you have somehow figuring this out on the way, and look at what works the best with children. And I would say it's exactly the same thing with people, because we're all children at first, right? So what I would say, how do children succeed the best? When they have schedule, when they have clear expectations, and when you follow through with consequences, right? So in the terms of employment, I would say expectations, that would be KPIs, right? I would like for you to generate 10 leads a week, or I would like for you to, clean out my QuickBooks file, and it has to be delivered by Wednesday. So those are the clear KPIs. You have to have measurable expectations and results that you want them to deliver, and at the right time. The second part is it's sort of kind of the consequences, right? A person delivered on time, always great feedback, right? This is amazing. I don't know what I would have done without you. If you're in a line of business that justifies bonuses, apply bonuses to that equation. The same goes to the negative feedback or developmental feedback, right? Non-deliverable metric on time or quality, whatever that is, it has to be just in time feedback. It doesn't work if you sort of kind of like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. And you kind of keep on going. So you're delaying that. And then, you know how it is with children sometimes too, right? You kind of like, you tell them, please finish, playing on your computer. Please finish. And then on the fourth time, as a parent, you end up yelling, right? So you don't want to apply that same strategy with the employees. You want to be clear, that this is a just-in-time feedback. And then, there are subsequent consequences if it continues. So if you have maybe, I don't know, whatever your policy is, let's say you have 3 strikes for whatever the performance or each of the activities, and then let's talk about it. And I don't hesitate to fire fast, because in the past, as a woman, I was always hesitant to do that. And I thought, oh my gosh, somebody is going to be out of job, and I'm such a bad person. But I actually turned it around and I said, I'm going to set that person free, because they're suffering at doing what they're doing right now. There's a reason why they're not performing. They're suffering. They're not in the right place. So I'm going to set them free, and I'm going to let them go. They're going to be so much happier with somebody else. So apply that. If you're not seeing performance in the first couple of weeks with any employee, I just let them go.
One thing that I think can be applied to this scenario, it's like construction, right? We all want, let's say, the bathroom. We know what goes inside the bathroom. So that is the final goal. And having like those milestones to see, are we reaching the milestones? How often would you recommend a one-on-one meeting for people? And then I don't like to do this, but I'll do a second question would be softwares and apps that we can use in order to facilitate this communication, because there's nothing that makes me crazier is that like long emails or long text messages that just doesn't, I don't think is efficient to anybody. But what would you recommend in terms of the communication face to face and different technologies that people can use to manage the projects and the VA better?
I personally use WhatsApp only because WhatsApp kind of connects you globally. Everyone has a WhatsApp. If it comes to, let's say, a very sort of like detailed deliverable, or I need some sort of a file, whatever that is that needs to be kind of delivered, right? Then you can kind of go back to email, tangible asset. But if it's a daily communication, then it's always WhatsApp. We always use WhatsApp. We create groups. You could use Slack, you could use Discord, your sort of software of choice. You can use project management software, such as Asana or Monday or whatever it is. It's kind of your preference. The only reason why we're using WhatsApp is because it's immediately available to everyone, right? So like the day of hire, we're all communicating right away. Everyone is on board, and it kind of creates an ease of use. So this is your sort of like, imagine that you're in the real office. This is your day-to-day interaction. So WhatsApp becomes more like, hey, quick question kind of thing, right? And then deliverables are more communicated more formally, right? So that would be your project management software, whatever it is, depending on what you're doing. In terms of constant communication with your team, I'd say in the very beginning, you want to do as much of that as possible, even to the point that you actually get to connect with somebody on a personal level. It's kind of goes beyond, this is somebody in Philippines or in South America, or whatever it is that's doing something for me. And you almost like tend to sort of like disassociate yourself from them. I don't recommend doing that. I almost kind of want to treat it the same way as you have a corporate team and you're trying to like have a team building activities. You can't really fly to Philippines. Maybe you can, but how can you implement that? So I, in the very beginning, have weekly meetings with my team to the point that, highs and lows, like we spend 5 minutes, highs and lows, right? It's not a lot of time, but that's how I get to know the intricacy of their life, right? And that's how I get to appreciate how much I do for them and how much they do for me, right? So, I'll just give you one example. One of my VAs was kind of very ecstatic. They got a new car and, they were sharing with the team, and it turned out to be a Toyota Corolla 1995, right? That was a peak of their year. They reached that level where they could afford to buy that car, right? I mean, what does it give me? Like, knowing that I'm supporting somebody in that opportunity to be able to afford that car, and now his family can go on vacations and kind of like not take a bus or whatever, it creates that personal connection, right? So that, we're not just kind of robots, right? Like working for each other, working with each other. We're kind of still on that human level. And, I get to appreciate my team member, right? In a totally different perspective, right? Because I live here in a completely different environment, and it just opens up, those little things. And then the other associate kind of shared that she was on the beach with friends, and some friends were in medicine, like doctors. Somebody was a police officer. Somebody was a teacher, something else, engineer. And as she shared how much she was making as a virtual assistant, they all wanted to quit their jobs and start being virtual assistants, right? It kind of gives you the level of, sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, we pay them $5. Is this an underpayment, right? Like we all kind of have that guilt inside of us, and we can pay so much higher here in the United States, but the cost of living is so much lower in Philippines, for example, that you get to appreciate, oh my gosh, I am adding value to another human being, and it's a reciprocity that kind of comes along with this. So I'd say in the very beginning, do meet with them weekly at a minimum, and always have those like quick check-ins, right? You can then have maybe a once a month type of one-on-one longer meetings where you get to just kind of overall talk to them, but the feedback supposed to be just in time. Like you don't have to wait for the next day. It's that moment, that minute, to communicate so that they know, oh my gosh, I did amazing. I'll kind of continue on that behavior, or I need to improve, and I'll know what to do.
You're incorporating something that you can come back to each week or each time you connect with them. And it's like building upon itself. So that relationship is being built, and that's important. I completely agree. Anna, this has been great. Lots to kind of unpack on this topic, but this has been great. Where can the ladies listening learn more about you?
You can either check my website, outsourceyourtasks.com, or email me at anna@outsourceyourtasks.com. I'm always happy to talk about this. Is a topic that's near and dear to my heart.
Awesome. All this information you guys can find on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 questions. And the first one is, what's the most transformational book you ever read?
Probably I'll have to go back to Rich Dad and Poor Dad. My dad gave me that book to read. And at first I kind of dismissed that as, what are you talking about? Like, it's all about corporate growth and whatever. And, once I actually was able to understand what it's all about, definitely changed my perspective. So I'll probably keep going back to that one.
Second question is, what's the most powerful routine that you do to create a financially free and balanced life, whatever balance means to you?
I'd say for my personal life right now, right, I have to start my day right. So my mornings are all about meditation, exercise, and then I kind of set the perspective for the day, and then kind of go with how the day kind of unfolds for me. And routinely, I try to outsource as much as possible. Anytime I'm doing something where I tell myself, why am I still doing that? That's my routine right now. I kind of keep on outsourcing, and it's the healing process that keeps on going.
Love that. And last question, which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
I'd say probably has to be all the women in my family, my grandmothers, my mom, my sisters. I have a lot of strong women, and it's interesting how you kind of learn to appreciate the struggle that they went through and understand that everything that they did is kind of to bring you up here, and also unlearning a lot of that too. So it's kind of like for me, it came out to be more like a wave, right? Kind of getting to that same level and then unlearning and appreciating the reasoning why they had to be where they are, and that I don't have to be, right? So I could be a different example for future generations. So I just appreciate all the women in my family. My mom specifically, she's the strongest yet the most gentle woman I know, and she allows me to feel a daughter even at my age, and just kind of continue that relationship. So probably say my women in my family.
Anna, thank you so much for being on our show. Thanks for sharing your ideas and wisdom with our community. Appreciate you and your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.